Richard Basehart, David Edison, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
Okay, let's keep this going right now. Let's keep this going. Okay, so here I am back again. In 1 second. Let's do this right now once again. Okay, it's been a few days since I did a video. Trying to get my I'm trying to get my bell. I'm trying to get myself back on gear, honest, and honor President John F. Kennedy. And in the spirit of John F. Kennedy, I intend to put this nation and this world back on the right track. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so let me elaborate on a few things because I think this is so utterly important for today and everything that's happening, because this coronavirus deal has hit us so hard and has hit the world so hard that it's something that I think hasn't been experienced since I don't know when. There's other things I hear that could be possibly on the horizon, which kind of has me kind of worried somewhat. So I think in today's world and everything that's happening, I think we're like on a, how can I say it? I think we're like on a, like this. We're like, we could either go one way and from this point on avert any more major tragedies and kind of zoom to a period of peaceful coexistence and kind of put the negative past behind us, or we could tip to the other way, in which things get really ugly throughout the whole world. So that's the position that's happening. That's the how can I say, the precipice. That's the condition that's here right now. So since I see myself as someone, hold on 1 second, let me put this right here. There we go. That's it right there. Just get to the illuminating light. Okay, the illuminating light field. So since I see myself as somebody who is the 5149 to tip it to the trajectory of peaceful coexistence around the world, and to minimize all the major disasters until they become minor, and then get the minor to finally the majority of that dissipates, so we could go into a period of peaceful coexistence. Since I see myself as the 5149, I intend to carry out who I am as the 5149. Now, some of you may be wondering, well, what do you mean, the 5149? Well, think about it. Okay, we have all these world problems that are happening right now, especially with the coronavirus. This is something that I didn't think it would be honest with you, when it first started and it started to spread and things were happening, I had no idea that it would become as infectious or as heavy as it has become. Now, no matter which way people may look at it, okay, whether they look at it from the heavier side or the lighter side, or this side, or this side or that side, the fact that it's had a huge impact, not just on this whole nation, but on this whole world. And I think this is an opportunity, if human beings could open up their eyes, their spiritual eyes, that they could use this to kind of tip it to a far more long-range positive than would not have happened if this virus ever came around. What I mean by that is that as bad as it is, things don't have to get any worse if we know how to tilt things to a more of a positive. Now, the reason why I use the terminology, hold on one second, please don't go anywhere, okay? The video went back on. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So, here's what I'm trying to say. See, I'm using a numerical symbology here, a numerical symbology, and I'm sharing that numerical symbology with everybody who's watching this video because I'm trying to demonstrate something. See, a lot of times when problems hit, whether on an individual basis or on a collective basis, it's easy for people to let things overwhelm them, and then when things overwhelm them, they tend to go into more of a negative trajectory than a positive. Let me remind everybody here that, okay, the only thing you need to do, the only thing I need to do, the only thing everybody needs to do is to keep it more on a positive than a negative. And that's the reason why I use the numerical symbology of 5149. It'll be like this, okay? Let's say instead of 5149, let's say if it was 50-50. Let's say you had a complete positive of 50 on the one hand and a complete negative of 50 on the other. Well, then what you have is a standstill. And anytime there's a standstill, I don't like saying this, but it's just human nature that people start to lose hope and they start tilting it on a negative of a 5149. Does that make sense? And then from the 5149 goes more and more and more into a negative. And that's usually why things kind of unfortunately tilt eventually to big disasters, okay? Like what happened in World War II and how all that evolved. I shouldn't say evolved, but kind of devolved, okay? Didn't have to happen like that, but it did. And I could explain that into like a future video. So what I'm doing is telling people in this video that what you could do is tilt your personal circumstances and then help others to tilt their personal circumstances, and then one person after another, instead of a 5149 on the negative, a 5149 on a positive. See, because when things go more on a negative, they tend to go more and more and more until finally a huge disaster happens. This coronavirus, I bet you any money, it could have been prevented. That's my take on it. It could have been prevented, but see, at some point it tilted into the negative, and all of a sudden it was unleashed throughout, first in China, and then it started spreading, and then went throughout the whole world. Okay, so that's what happened. But even though as bad as that is, see, we could tilt things into a positive if we really want to. So you start with the 5149 positive. That's all you have to do. You tell yourself, no matter how much there's negativity out there, no matter how much there's negativity I have to deal with my own life, no matter how much negativity, this situation, that situation, that situation, I'm always going to keep it to a 51 positive all the time. A 51 positive, a 51 positive. Because once you get to a 51 positive, then it puts the negative more on what's called, I call like a disadvantage. And then you get to a 52, instead of 5149, now you had, okay, you're at the 5149, now you're at the 5248, okay, 5347, okay, 5446, okay, 5545. You see what I'm trying to say? So finally, it gets rid of all the negative. But you got to tilt it into a 5149, 5149. Okay, on the positive. Now, why am I mentioning this? Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, and please do not go away. It's important that you don't go away, that you listen to this whole thing. Okay, be right back. I'm going to demonstrate my principle and show you why my principle really works, and the one who I feel is trying to communicate this principle to me so I can share it with you and everybody else. Okay, be right back. Okay, right back. So, thank you for hanging on. Okay, so who I feel is the one who's trying to share this principle with me, and then from sharing the principle with me to share it with everybody else. Of course, President John F. Kennedy. We try to put this into the right directory. Okay, JFK. He's one I feel like is trying to share this principle with me. As everybody knows who's watched my videos, anybody already knows this, President John F. Kennedy is my favorite president of all time. Okay, he's my favorite president. I feel like there was I not only feel, but I know there was foul play involved, in which certain negative forces got rid of him. And one of these times I'm going to prove that that's the fact, okay? A lot of people already feel that and know that, but I'm going to really prove it 100% in honor of his spirit, who he is, okay? But why am I bringing up John F. Kennedy for? The reason I'm bringing up John F. Kennedy, because please recall people who were born in my generation, okay? Please recall what's called the 13-day Cuban Missile Crisis. The 13-day Cuban Missile Crisis. Ooh, there was any time in the whole world in which, if that was handled correctly, the whole world could have went up in freaking flames. It would have been that time. Now, between the United States and Russia, it was 50-50 when that crisis happened. It was 50-50. It was a stand-up, a standoff, a stand-up and a standoff, a stand-up and a standoff. It could have went either way. If President John F. Kennedy didn't handle it right, okay, if it would have got into like what it called a 51-49 in the Soviet Union's favor, what would have happened is that the warlike military factions of the United States would have immediately launched a nuclear warhead against Russia. Russia would have retaliated before you know the whole world possibly could have went up in flames. But because John F. Kennedy handled it in a right way to a 51-49 on a positive, it turned everything around. It turned a whole trajectory around. Now you may be saying, well, what do you mean, Bob? Like, how did President John F. Kennedy handle that to a 51-49? Because during the 13-day Cuban Missile Crisis, I don't know the guy's name, but he was the ambassador from Russia. He gave like a telegraph or something to the United States, to the government, to the top official of the United States, saying that Russia would remove the missiles if the United States would agree to remove missiles. I believe it was from Turkey, something like that. And then shortly thereafter, the same person sent another message to disavow the first message. In other words, we're not going to comply with the first message. We're going to do this whether you like it or not. So what the government of the United States did is that they ignored the second message, which was more of a harder line stance of the Russian government, and acknowledged the first. You understand what I'm trying to say? That was like razor thin. That was like the needle right through the haystack. That was like the thread right through the needle hole. I mean, it was so close, close, close. So they choose to ignore the second message, which was a much more harder stance, and went into the first, thereby tilted it in favor of the United States 51-49, in which the Russian government had no choice but to acknowledge what the United States said in response not to the second message, because if they would have responded to the second message, it would have been a thermonuclear war between both sides, but to acknowledge the first, which tilted it on the favor of the United States. And the rest was history, in which it came out afterwards to a much more great positive. but it came that close towards an international exchange. But it was the administration of President John F. Kennedy, with the top people helping him, that tilted it in our favor. And thereafter, that's where I believe it was called a red phone or whatever it is, between the Soviet Union and the United States, or between the United States and the Soviet Union, whichever way you want to see it, in which any time in the future there was going to be an emergency, they could immediately talk, because one of the reasons why it almost became a thermonuclear exchange, because there was no way to communicate between the two major countries. And after that, they fixed that up. The point I'm trying to make is that we came that close towards the whole world destroying itself. But because of the wisdom of President John F. Kennedy and the other people who were with him, they tilted it in the other way. And it could have went with the thermonuclear exchange, because you had some war hawk generals in the Pentagon during the time, okay, that wanted to launch a nuclear warheads against Russia first. General LeMay, I think, was one of them. Anybody born in that generation knows who General LeMay is, because he was very much involved in World War II, including bombing like crazy Japan back in World War II. So even before we dropped a nuclear bomb, we had decimated so many cities in Japan it wasn't even funny. But back to the point, if it wasn't for President John F. Kennedy handling it like the way it is, it could have been a thermonuclear exchange. And afterwards, we came so close. That's where John F. Kennedy softened. When I say softened, don't equate that word soften into weakness in any way, shape, or form. But that's where he softened his very hardened anti-communist stand, meaning he was still never for communism, but what he said at the end of the day, behind whatever political disagreements, whether communism or capitalism, he stated that we all live on this planet, no matter who we are, whether Americans or Russians or Chinese, we all live on the same planet. And because we all live on the same planet, we have a vested interest to work together. And John F. Kennedy starts seeing things from a different perspective, okay? He starts seeing things from a different perspective. Even from his NASA goal of going to the moon and back, after that he wanted to be more inclusive of having the Russians work with us to be a joint venture to go to the moon and back. Now, some people may take offense at that, meaning more of the hard right-wing hawkish group out there may take offense at that. But you have to understand, from President John F. Kennedy's point of view, we came that close to a thermonuclear exchange. That close, okay? And from that point on, he wanted to find ways to work with Russia. And I'm sure it would have been with China or any other group. In other words, he was still very much, of course, anti-communist, very much against this, very much against that. People have to understand that President John F. Kennedy, he was a very hardened anti-communist, okay? And him and Richard Nixon actually were good friends. A lot of people don't know that, but it's true. So even though they debated in the 1960 elections and everything else like that, even before that point, they were good friends. They were very hardened anti-communists, okay? So, we have to understand history correctly, but because we sing so close, so very close towards the whole world being destroyed, President John F. Kennedy ended up seeing things a little bit different. And even Khrushchev seeing things a little bit different. There was a little bit of a shift towards a positive. That's what I'm saying. The 51-49. The 51-49. 51 on the positive, 49 get it to the negative, and then eventually get more and more on a positive till all the whole entire dangerous negatives are completely dispersed. So what I'm sharing with you today, right now in this video, for you, first of all, in your own personal life, the only thing you have to write it down on a piece of paper. Just say, for this point on, and everything I say, and everything I do, and everything I am, and everything I act, I'm going to do it from a 51-49 position. Meaning, even though I have to deal with a lot of negatives, and I have to deal with this negative, that negative, I'm tempted to even give more negative back, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find a way to tilt it towards more of a positive. If I feel like I cannot completely give up the negatives myself because of whatever the reasons, at least I'm going to tilt it now from this point on to a 51 positive. in my life into a 49 negative. And then whatever situations I'm dealing with on the outside world do the same thing. 5149, 5149. And I feel this inspiration of this is coming from President John F. Kennedy to me, and to share it with you who are watching this, okay? So let me put this right here. There we go. So I'm sharing this because he only takes one individual with a brightly illuminated consciousness to strike a brightly lit match. That match strikes another match, another match, become a brightly illuminated flame for each and every single individual, because the only way we're going to turn a whole entire nation or world around is for each individual to become brightly illuminated, cosmically brightly illuminated. So that's my message for today. And don't allow yourself to go into a negative. Don't give up hope. Know that we could turn anything and everything around, no matter what it is. And don't tolerate any more major negatives coming your way, but at the same time handle it in a way that's more of from a positive, a 5149 positive, so that way you don't let the negative overwhelm you, conquer you, put you into a much more uglier negative zone. And that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Okay, take care.